believe in it. Why I should fight. But if I could just put it in the words of the songwriter.
All right.
When I think of the goodness of Jesus and the personal implication, what it's done for me, and then I ought to be ready to fight this faith fight. You know, really, these other two little pages I got here, I could really flip them open and say that the fight that we're in is already fixed. Yeah, it's already fixed. Sunday morning, he got up and fixed the fight. I'm just commentating something that has already previously happened. But I got to be a good commentator, because if I leave something out, I wish I had a believer. If I leave something out, it will affect your belief system. I don't know how you came here tonight. And what constraint caused you to move from your place of residence to this house of worship. It ain't Sunday morning. This is not Sunday morning. But your belief system saying every morning is Sunday morning. Somebody held their hands up this week and said, and he ran back and said, all power is in my hand. Meaning that there should be an unwavering, unalterable belief that I'm going to fight for what I believe in. And you can't fight for a cause if you don't believe what you're fighting for. Because it's from the belief system that one is perpetuated and compelled to formulate a defense mechanism. I wish I had a believer here. Military uniform don't make you fight. You're just in a branch of service. But it's when you're thinking about protecting America from foreign and alien defense. If you like over here, where I like over here. I really didn't vote for Bush, but I really applauded the brother. I left here and went to Africa. And I had to come back over here, but I had to go through customs. I wish I had a believer. Yeah, I didn't vote for Bush, but I had to like Bush for the president that he set for me to get back up in here. I had to have a passport. I had to have my passport. And they were checking me to make sure I didn't bring nothing over here that wasn't supposed to be over here. You don't hear me, they searched my bag. Those are my bags, but they searched them. And to let me know that they searched them, they left a sheet of paper in there and said that we have gone through your personal stuff. But it was a man there. It wasn't the bags that kept me from coming over here. It was a man that was sitting in the booth that had to give me an optical observation. He had to ask me a couple of things. What you left from over here for? I left because I went to do some mission work. And how long did you stay over there? And where did you stay? And I started answering those questions, and he looked at me and searched out my record. And then he went on and stamped my passport. I want to tell you, it was a little thin line that kept me out of the country. I wish I had a believer here. But when I crossed the line, I thank God. Might not like him, but I like the country that I came. I had a believer here, and I felt at home when I got back over here. I'm wondering, have you felt at home in the gospel yet? Have you felt at home in Jesus Christ? Let me ask you a question. If he don't do nothing else for you, you ought to still be happy about who he is. I ought to have some witnesses here tonight. If he don't do another thing for you, he's done enough to keep you praising him right now. Matter of fact, you owe him some back praise. Because you ain't through shouting over some of the stuff that he's delivered you from. That's why on Sunday morning when these pseudo congregants come to church and they want to take your mouse and turn down the volume of your prayer. Up in the right-hand corner of a computer that's minimized, maximized, and shut down. And some people on Sunday morning want to grab your mouse and hurry up and immediately minimize your praise. But when you think about what God has done for you, you ought to snatch your mouse back and maximize your praise, because you're contending for the faith. If it had not been for the Lord, my deliverance wouldn't have come. My healing wouldn't have come upon me. My son would be in jail. I wish I had a believer here. My rent would be in foreclosure. But because of him, I think I ought to stand up and tell you, for God I live. And for God I die. I just want to know, because I mean, you know, ain't no sense of fighting if you don't believe in what you're fighting. You got to know what you're fighting for. And when you know what you're fighting for, it merits an aggressive justification. Yes, it does. What you fighting about? Ask your neighbor, what you fighting about? What's your reason for being in the fight? You can't be in this fight based on mama. You can't be in this fight based on daddy. This is a personal fight. A personal contention. You got to believe. Dr. Rose, I still believe that the scripture, and this 33 years ago when they set me down in the council of those meetings, I still believe that the scriptures were divinely written by men inspired of God, which is, I wish I had a believer here, which is a perfect treasure for heavenly instruction for God for his author, salvation. I wish I had a believer here. You ain't forgot that, have you, brothers? No, you ought not forget that. I mean, you ought not forget that. There's several things I haven't forgotten. And the first thing, that my name is not Reverend. No, my name ain't Reverend. My name is Lee. But what I do carries the title of a Reverend. Yeah, now denominations say ain't no Reverend in the Bible. I wish I had a believer. Yeah, but prophets ain't needed either. Apostles are not required today either. Jesus suspended their calling. Well, let me have 2 more minutes. You got to know what you're fighting for. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to tell you, is it worth fighting for? Yes, it is, because on the premise that it allows us to demolish arguments and every pretension that stands in objection to Christ's standards. In other words, we've got to suspend, demolish, annihilate all of these doctrines and arguments that will stand themselves up against the knowledge of God. Is not that what Paul said in 2 Corinthians 25? He said, casting down arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. And verse 6 is the conclusion. Because there's a comma after verse 5. And it simply says, and be ready to punish all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. You can't free nobody until you free yourself. I wish I had a believer here. Quit trying to untie somebody and you in a knot yourself. Preach, Reverend Fields. Your obedience has to be fulfilled before you can become an inducer and fulfiller of somebody else's life. I would further argue that, am I not right? That Jesus himself was his own self-apology. I'm my own apologetics. He simply says to us, brothers and sisters, when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover, in the feast day, many believed in his name when they saw the miracles which he did. I beg the difference that he's not a miracle working God. Oh, yes, he is. Brothers and sisters, Jesus says that you've got to have evidence.
Go ahead.
And he says the evidence that I give you is not something that is hidden from you. I have not put it in the bushes of your thoughts. And I have put it before your face as I want you to see what I do. I wish I had a believer here. I want it recorded. That's why he called Matthew, Mark, Luke. And he says synoptically agree with one another on what I do. Come yonder, John, and synoptically write about who I am. But all of you agree that I am. Matthew, Mark, and Luke agree. On the same thing. To see together. And so, brothers and sisters, they say, if we're going to fight, we got to have a mind to fight together. Too many of us are in the battle with the wrong clothes on. We around here fighting one another when you ought to be fighting. It's not about the deacons and the pulpit. It's not about the ushers. You see, you can't talk about the Crips and the Bloods on the exterior of the church when you got them right here in the church. You got a lot of people that step right up in the church. You got some missionaries in the church that's fighting against folk up in the church. You got some folk who can't stand each other up in the church. How we gonna get the world together until we first of all get the church together? Judgment will start fast in the house of God. I'm over my time. I'm feeling good. You got to know what you're fighting for. I'm fighting because when praises go up, this preacher has given you a homiletical and exegetical expert, and that will be a regurgitation of what he's already spoken. I'm fighting because when praises go up, blessings come down. When I come to church on the morning, I don't want no preacher to be telling me about the news that's in the paper of the city where I live, because that's subject to change. I'm coming to church Sunday morning to ask you, in the midst of my struggle, financial difficulty, is there a word from the Lord that I ain't got but $20 in my pocket and I'm about to scratch off? I wish I had a believer here. You better tell me something good this morning. Oh, I hear you, preacher, pay your tithe and your offerings, and he perennially promises to open up a window and radically pour out that you won't have room enough to receive. Don't tamper with this gospel, because Jesus is the only one in God that I know can push a house through a window, can push a car through a window. I wish I had a believer here. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I know what he's talking about, and I'm going to fight for the faith because I got a reason to fight.